billions of dollars in federal contracts for everything from refurbishing decks of aircraft carriers to installing railings in federal buildings to professional services. We have a thing called, I won't go into it all, but there's not enough time now, but I'm determined to use every taxpayer's dollar that is assigned to me to spend going to American companies and American workers that build American products. And as part of that, I'm going to increase the share of the dollars the federal government spends to small disadvantaged businesses, including black and brown small businesses. Right now it calls for 10%. I'm going to move that to 15% of every dollar spent will be spent for that. I have the authority to do that. Just imagine, instead of denying millions of entrepreneurs the ability to access capital and contracting, we made it possible to take their dreams to the marketplace to create jobs and invest in our communities. The data shows young black entrepreneurs are just as capable of succeeding given the chance as white entrepreneurs are. But they don't have lawyers, they don't have accountants, but they have great ideas. Does anyone doubt this whole nation would be better off from the investments those people make? And I promise you, that's why I set up this National Small Business Administration that's much broader, because they're going to get those loans. Instead of consigning millions of American children to under-resourced schools, let's get each and every child 3 and 4 years old access to school, not daycare, school. In the last 10 years, studies have been done by all the great universities. It shows that it increased by 56% the possibility of a child, no matter what background they come from, no matter what. If they start school at 3 years old, they have a 56% chance of going all through all 12 years without any trouble and being able to do well. And a chance to learn and grow and thrive in a school and throughout their lives. And let's unlock more than an incredible creativity and innovation that will come from the nation's historically backed colleges and universities. I have a $5 billion a year program giving them the resources to invest in research centers and laboratories in high demand fields to compete for good paying jobs in industries of the future like cybersecurity. The reason why they don't, their students are equally able to learn as well and get the good paying jobs that start at 90 and 100,000 bucks, but they don't have the money to provide and build those laboratories. So guess what? They're going to get the money to build those laboratories. So instead of just talking about infrastructure, let's get about the business of actually rebuilding roads and highways, filling the sidewalks and cracks, installing streetlights and high-speed internet, creating space to live and work and play safely. Let's ensure access to health care, clean water, clean air, nearby grocery stores, stocked with fresh vegetables and food that in fact deal with. I mean, these are all things we can do. Does anyone doubt this whole nation will be better off with these investments? The rich will be just as well off, the middle class will do better, and everybody will do better. It's about good paying jobs, financial stability, being able to build some generational wealth. It's about economic growth for our country and outcompeting the rest of the world, which is now outcompeting us. But just as fundamental as any of these investments I've discussed is maybe the most fundamental: the right to vote. The right to vote. A lot of the members of the Black Caucus knew John Lewis better than I did, but I knew him. On his deathbed, like many, I called John to speak to him. Rev, all John wanted to do was talk about how I was doing. He died, I think, about 25 hours later. But you know what John said? He called the right to vote precious, almost sacred. He said the most powerful, nonviolent tool we have in a democratic society. This sacred right is under assault with incredible intensity like I've never seen, even though I got started as a public defender and a civil rights lawyer. With an intensity and aggressiveness we've not seen in a long, long time. It's simply un-American. It's not, however, sadly, unprecedented. The creed, "We shall overcome," is a long-time mainstay of the civil rights movement, as Jesse Jackson can tell you better than anybody. The obstacle to progress that have to be overcome are a constant challenge. We saw it in the 60s, but with the current assault is not just an echo of a distant history. In 2020, we faced a tireless assault on the right to vote. Restrictive laws, lawsuits, threats of intimidation, voter purges, and more. We resolved to overcome it all, and we did. More Americans voted in the last election in the midst of the pandemic, than any election in American history. You got voters registered. You got voters to the polls. The rule of law held. Democracy prevailed. We overcame. But today, let me be unequivocal. I've been engaged in this work my whole career, and we're going to be ramping up our efforts to overcome again. I will have more to say about this at a later date, a truly unprecedented assault on our democracy, an effort to replace nonpartisan election administrators and to intimidate those charged with tallying and reporting the election results. But today, as for the act of voting itself, I urge voting rights groups in this country to begin to redouble their efforts now to register and educate voters. And in June should be a month of action on Capitol Hill. I hear all the folks on TV saying, why doesn't Biden get this done? Well, because Biden only has a majority of effectively 4 votes in the House and a tie in the Senate, with 2 members of the Senate who vote more with my Republican friends. But we're not giving up. Earlier this year, the House of Representatives passed For the People Act to protect our democracy. The Senate will take it up later this month, and I'm going to fight like heck with every tool at my disposal for its passage. The House is also working on the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, which is critical, providing new legal tools to combat the new assault on the right to vote. To signify the importance of our efforts, today I'm asking Vice President Harris to help these efforts and lead them among her many other responsibilities. With her leadership and your support, we're going to overcome again, I promise you, but it's going to take a hell of a lot of work. And finally, we must address what remains the stain on the soul of America. What happened in Greenwood was an act of hate and domestic terrorism with the through line that exists today still. Just close your eyes. Remember what you saw in Charlottesville 4 years ago on television. Neo-Nazis, white supremacists, the KKK, coming out of those fields at night, Virginia, with lighted torches, the veins bulging on their as they were screaming. Remember, just close your eyes and picture what it was. Well, Mother Fletcher said when she saw the insurrection at the Capitol on January the 9th, it broke her heart. A mob of violent white extremists, thugs, said reminded her of what happened here in Greenwood 100 years ago. Look around at the various hate crimes against Asian Americans and Jewish Americans. Hate that never goes away. Hate only hides. Jesse, I think I mentioned this to you. I thought after you guys pushed through with Dr. King, the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act, I thought we were moved. What I didn't realize, I thought we had made enormous progress. I was so proud to be a little part of it. But you know what, Rev? I didn't realize hate's never defeated. It only hides. It hides. And given a little bit of oxygen, just a little bit of oxygen by its leaders, it comes out of there from under the rock like it was happening again, as if it never went away. And so, folks,
One day hate will be non-existent to the universe. When the great white throne judgment occurs, afterwards God recreates a new heaven and a new earth. All former things will be in behind us. And one day, the very hate that Lucifer, the Antichrist, created when defiling the kingdom of God, one day it will not just hide, but it will dissipate from the existence of the atmosphere. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, Lord God in heaven. Thank you for us knowing that your word is true.
We can't. We must not give hate a safe harbor. As I said in my address at the joint session of Congress, according to the intelligence community, terrorism from white supremacy is the most lethal threat to the homeland today. Not ISIS, not Al Qaeda, white supremacists. That's not me. That's the intelligence community under both Trump and under my administration. 2 weeks ago, I signed into law the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, which the House had passed, and the Senate. My administration will soon lay out our broader strategy to counter domestic terrorism and the violence driven by the most heinous hate crimes and other forms of bigotry. But I'm going to close where I started. To Mother Randall, Mother Fletcher, Mr. Van Ellis, to the descendants, and to all survivors, thank you. Thank you for giving me the honor of being able to spend some time with you earlier today. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your commitment. And thank your children, your grandchildren, and your uncle, and your nieces, and your nephews. To see and learn from you is a gift, a genuine gift. Dr. John Hope Franklin, one of America's greatest historians, Tulsa's proud son, whose father was a Greenwood survivor, said, and I quote, "Whatever you do, it must be done in the spirit of goodwill and mutual respect and even love. How else can we overcome the past and be worthy of our forebears and face the future with confidence and with hope?" On this sacred and solemn day, may we find that distinctly Greenwood spirit that defines the American spirit, a spirit that gives me so much confidence and hope for the future, that helps us see face to face, a spirit that helps us know fully who we are and who we can be as a people and as a nation. I've never been more optimistic about the future than I am today. I mean that. The reason is because of this new generation of young people. They're the best educated, they're the least prejudiced, they're the most open generation in American history. And although I have no scientific basis for what I'm about to say, but those of you who are over 50, how often did you ever see advertisements on television with black and white couples? Not a joke. I challenge you, find today, when you turn on the stations, sit on one station for 2 hours, and I don't know how many commercials you'll see, lay 8 to 5. 2 to 3 out of 5 have mixed race couples in them. That's not by accident. They're selling soap, man. Not a joke. Remember old Pat Caddell used to say, you want to know what's happening in American culture? Watch advertising. Because they want to sell what they have. We have hope. And folks like you, honey, I really mean it. We have hope, but we've got to give them support. We have got to give them the backbone to do what we know has to be done. Because I doubt whether any of you would be here if you didn't care deeply about this. You're sure the devil didn't come to hear me speak. But I really mean it. I really mean it. Let's not give up, man. Let's not give up. As the old saying goes, hope springs eternal. I know we've talked a lot about famous people, but I'm My colleagues in the Senate used to always kid me because I was always quoting Irish poets. They think I did it because I'm Irish. They think I did it because, as we Irish, we have a little chip on our shoulder, a little bit sometimes. That's not why I did it. I did it because they're the best poets in the world. You can smile, it's okay, it's true. There was a famous poet who wrote a poem called The Cure at Troy, Seamus Heaney. And there's a stanza that I think is the definition of what I think should be our call today for young people. He said, history teaches us not to hope on this side of the grave, but then, once in a lifetime, that longed for tidal wave of justice rises up, and hope and history rhyme. Let's make it rhyme. Thank you.
A speech equal parts soaring and Biden-esque folksy there. President Biden marking the 100-year anniversary since the Tulsa race massacre, making clear that that is exactly what it was. He said in one line that I think received the loudest applause, it was not a race riot, it was a massacre, honoring the survivors and their families. Joining our conversation, Kim Atkins-Storr, Boston Globe columnist and MSNBC contributor. Jason Johnson and Claire are still here. Jason, I want to come back to you. I think this may be the most important speech of the Biden presidency in that he opened this chapter of so much violence and so much pain, and he tied it to 3 conversations we have on this show every day, including the one we started with, a deathbed conversation with the late, great John Lewis, where they talked about the right to vote being precious and sacred. John Lewis confiding in the now president that it's under assault like we've never seen. The president making his way to acute awareness of the debate going on around him about voting rights in America, announcing in this speech that Vice President Kamala Harris will be in charge of legislative efforts to help pass federal voting rights legislation, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. He also came back to the theme that animated his run in the Democratic presidential primary, talking about the soul of the nation, which we know from his early campaign announcement, the KKK neo-Nazis in Charlottesville that recently ran for president to restore the soul of our nation. In a haunting section of the speech, he asked everyone to close their eyes. And he talked about how the survivors of the Tulsa massacre said it reminded them, 1/6 reminded them of the Tulsa massacre. The president also re-upping the report from his intelligence community and FBI director that terrorism from white supremacy is the gravest threat to the homeland. Jason Johnson, your thoughts?
I'm going to leave it right there. It's a sad note upon to the white race today, but it is factual. They have got data, statistics to prove what they're saying. They're not just talking out of talk. They're not just whistling Dixie. They're actually giving out facts that the greatest threat here in America is people like Timothy McVeigh and Nichols. People that think that the white race is superior over all other races. And they're wrong. Because the Bible teaches us that we're all equal. Not just at the foot of the cross, but we're all equal to let the wheat grow with the tares until time of harvest. As far as I'm concerned, this has been a very, very eye-opening moment for the historians pertaining to the race massacre that happened 100 years ago in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's something that I didn't know nothing about. And a lot of people don't know nothing about it because it never was advertised. It never was scrutinized. It got swept under the rug, out of sight, out of mind. And the next thing you know, people just didn't say nothing about it. They tried to, I guess it was in a way kind of normalizing it. between all the other events that happened since 1921. It's really sad. It's sad that it has taken this long to identify the corruption throughout the planet, and now we've got people like Mr. Biden that's standing up and identifying it and calling it out. He done a great job. He done a great speech. Good luck to all of us as we repeat ourselves again and again and again after every message. Good luck to each and every one of us, and shalom.